This is Business Emma. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiagib. Thank you very much for taking your time to join us this morning on our economic review 2146. That is 20146 as your SMS line at Metropole TVKE across all your social media platforms. Let's talk about the big elephant in the room today. Counties shut down. Now, starting today, Thursday, county health facilities will not admit patients requiring inpatient services. Now, this is one of the measures that the Council of Governors has taken as part of a shutdown that follows a nearly 3-month deadlock at the Senate over the allocation of the funds to counties. Now, the chairman of the Council of Governors, Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, has announced that the county health facilities will only provide minimal outpatient services. Oparanya has further announced that all county staff that have been asked to proceed on leave for 2 months with non-essential services being suspended. Now, the announcement comes a day after the Senate failed to reach a consensus for the 11th time on how funds devolved to counties will be allocated across the 47 counties. The Senate has been locked in a stalemate over how to share out the 316.5 billion among the counties following division over the proposed third basis for revenue allocation. Now, the proposed formula has created a rift in the Senate as counties with bigger populations are poised to receive more funds compared with counties that are sparsely populated. However, the Senate has slammed the move by the Council of Governors as, wait for it, unconstitutional, saying county governors will be held liable for violating the right to access to health. The first question is therefore this: it has finally come to this. Are these the measures that counties needed to take to finally get funds released to them? Joining us this morning, therefore, just to help us understand the constitutional legality of this move from COG, we are joined by Collins Oloch, is a lawyer and economic analyst. Collins, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Good morning.
Happy to have you around. Let's talk about that. Do you feel that the COG needed to pull this move just to finally get the money released to the counties?
In my view, desperate times call for desperate measures. And I think the COG and the counties have been pushed to the wall and they don't have an alternative to this. I mean, you will imagine that this bill has been in the knowledge of Senate for the past 2 years, yet they've not done anything substantive to it. They've met 11 times and nothing substantive has come out of those 11 meetings that they've had. They yesterday broke into a Kamukunji and we thought they were going to have a deal after that, but that has not come to fruition. And I think the COG chairman is skeptical that even in the 12th time or the 13th time, nothing is still going to come out of that. And you know, by dint of the second advisory petition number 2 of 2019, the CJ stated that when such an impasse persists between counties and the Senate, then the counties are allowed to get 50% of what they got last year from the consolidated fund. And so it is upon the CS Treasury to move to Parliament to ask Parliament to move such a to pass such a legislation so that the counties can get 50% before completion of a formula that is agreed upon by the Senate. But just to put this into constitutional context, as you've asked me, I think Article 216 of the Constitution first gives a CRA mandate to sit down and advise with regards to a formula of which, with regards to a formula in which revenue is going to be allocated to the counties. And CRA did sit down and they did pass a proposal on how funds are going to be given to the counties. And you remember the first proposal that was being discussed in Senate was a proposal from Kibiru's committee that was given by CRA. But then this conversation changed when counties started, when senators started talking about losing counties and gaining counties, and that is where we lost this conversation, absolutely. And that is where we stopped having, we stopped having the affairs or the interest of the counties at heart when we were debating this. And you remember the county governors have come out in the past and given ultimatum and stated that they are unable to pay bills in the counties, they are unable to pay salaries at the county level, and so they are forced now, more than any other time, to ask their members, to ask the county workers not to turn up for work. This is legal. In as far as the constitution is asking that the county government or the government should put in place mechanisms to ensure right to health, these parameters should be put in place in a realistic environment. You imagine that counties don't have resources, and still the constitution expects them to guarantee right to health. The constitution still expects the Senate to pass certain legislation, and Senate has not done that. Instead, they convened a meeting yesterday to discuss a personality of the COG chairman. And so I think, in my view, what is happening is illegal, and in my view, the COG has been pushed to a point that they have to do this so that they force Senate to sit down and pass their mandate. But then, if the other governors are going to adopt this and are going to issue this communication to their members, is something else to be seen and to be waited to be seen upon. Because you remember the resolution to give Senate 14-day ultimatum was only passed by 27 members out of 47 members of 27 out of 47 governors. And so I'm yet to see if the rest 20 are going to act on this memo that has been issued by their chairman. I've seen only Machakos County and Kisumu County are the ones which have come out to act on this.
Back to exactly how we've seen this debate for the county revenue allocation actually move up to where we are right now. Remember, there were a couple of sittings just before the last three. Let me just mention for you the last three, where senators formed a committee, a 12-member senator committee that was supposed to go for an indoor closed meeting and sort of find a proper working formula for the county revenue allocation. They did not do that. Good. They came back. We did see some senators also meet with the president just the other day. So everybody thought, wow, so it's risen up to the president's level. So that means that, well, we are going to get something out of it, with the president promising that he was going to release an extra 50B that was supposed to go to the counties as well. But he pegged that on the performance of the economy, meaning, well, the money was in there, but in the future, I would release another 50B. It's supposed to go to the counties. Fine. Now, the COG has come up and acted on that. So for you, from where you're sitting this morning, Collins, what does that tell you about this whole back and forth that we have seen so far? And why haven't we had the 50% that is supposed to go to the counties already disbursed to the counties if we are waiting up to the level where the COG is telling you, well, we don't have money to pay for services delivery in our counties?
What I see here is the problem of leadership. And last time when I was here, I told you that 12-member committee will not come up with anything.
Actually, you did say that. You actually did mention that. Well, but Lusaka said they were without tribe, they were without race, and they were all coming from a general understanding of the problem.
I mean, nothing like that. I mean, they picked headliners from different positions. And so you expect the headliners to still hold on to their positions. I mean, what I'm saying is that there have been lack of leadership, right from the Senate and even outside Senate, with regards to the presidency and even leader of opposition, insofar as this matter is concerned. And the president calling senators the other day to State House and telling them that here is 53, actually it was 53 billion, and dangling 53 billion in their eyes and telling them, should you pass this, give me 2 years, I'll evaluate how the economy is doing, and then I'll give you this. And so he was trying to talk to the people who are saying, in fact, what you are talking about, the 316 billion going to the counties, is such a less amount of money. We should be having an increment of this. I think the president is still trying to campaign to those headliner members who are yet to see light insofar as this debate is concerned, and just win them in his fall insofar as one man, one vote shilling is concerned. And that is why you see Team Kenya still saying, why doesn't that 53 billion being effected now? Why do we have to wait until we see how the economy is performing? And you know, that conditional promise, for it to take effect, it will take forever. Because what parameters is the president going to use to say the economy has reached to a point where we can pump another 53 billion into counties? I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening totally. But What I'm saying is that we lost the conversation when we started talking about winning counties or gaining counties. We even have propositions and proposals insofar as saying, let us retain the previous formula as it were, or let us adopt CRA's formula in, if anything, supposed to advise us. But the thing that is happening here is politics of manipulation, where counties at the periphery are for the longest time contributed so much to the national economic grid, yet they have not had that in return insofar as allocation of resources is concerned. You imagine, for instance, a county like Taita Taveta with Galana Kulabu, or Turkana with oil, or Masabi to the wind power. They're contributing so much to the national grid, but when it comes to allocation of resources to them, that is not retaliated. You're seeing other counties that are benefiting so much, and you ask yourself what is happening to them. And I told you last time, to allocation of county revenue, it's a very simple thing. Nowadays, we have a lot of dated reports that are as late as this year or last year, insofar as, for instance, even the health is concerned. Take a report like that. Look at Homa Bay County, for instance. Look at the mortality index in Homa Bay County. Allocate resources when it comes to allocate health to Homa Bay County as a priority county. If you look at that index, look at Muranga County. Look at how their roads. How are they been? Resources should follow development. And for the longest time, counties are still going to be marginalized or underdeveloped because of many other reasons, historical reasons or any other reasons that may exist. But when we start talking about pumping money with regards to one man, one vote, or one man, one tree, 1 million, makes sense to me. I think we should go back to the conversation on resources and development. Look at how developed a county is and let us merge. And you remember when the CJ was issuing that advisory number 2 of 2019, he said, unless we align to ourselves the issue of allocation of resources to counties, if it is not addressed rightfully, then we are sitting in a bomb power that is going to detonate, that is going to be so huge, even it will make 2 or 3. So really, that is what we are facing. And I don't want to call out on senators to be selfless for once. You've been sent there to do your mandate, not to take pictures and get sitting allowance.
Pretty much, just as we clear on this issue with you, Collins, this morning, I mean, we do know that all non-essential services have been called off and some workers have been given a 2-week leave notice. I mean, from what you said in this morning, what should happen now? Because we're trying to fight the COVID-19 pandemic, and you've seen the area that the COG has picked, health. They've said, we are not admitting you come in, go out. But what should happen now? Do you think that this is going to sort of spur a response from the government? And you do expect to respond fast?
And there's already a response. As of late as yesterday, the leader of majority and the leader of minority, the COG chairman, and told him to hold on and to wait for a minute before he effects his threat. I think today now the senators will move with rage and see that there is need for them actually to broker a deal. Senator Wetangula yesterday stated that today we are going to have a white smoke, but unless people are ready to change their stance and unless they are ready to have the interest of a county at heart, I don't think we're going to have any improvement insofar as this matter is concerned. Because the Treasury, you see the kind of blame game that is ongoing. But Senate is saying, insofar as affecting the 50% is concerned, governors are saying senators have not acted. Senators are saying there's a witch hunt. There's another remote controlling them from from outside, and all those manner of theatrics that is happening. But I expect today, even the CS of Health is going to react to this and just have his word on this, because his docket is the one that is really being affected. And as we've put it, it is happening at a time where people really need healthcare attention insofar as fighting COVID pandemic is. The COG president knew where to hit, because if he did hit other avenues, he would not have gotten attention that he attracted yesterday.
Pretty much. Collins, thank you very much for taking your time this morning to share your sentiments on this issue as we wait to see exactly what's going to happen in the next couple of days or even hours as we hear. Thank you very much. Now, the banking sector has registered an increase in non-performing loans in the first half of 2020 attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic, according to Citon's Investments first half of 2020 banking sector report. The report themed depressed earnings and deteriorating asset quality amid the COVID-19 operating environment shows that asset quality for listed banks deteriorated in the first half of the year. Now, the report further shows that gross non-performing loan ratio rose by 1.6 percentage points to 11.6% from 10% in the first half of 2019. So the question is, what is going to be the effect of, or the direct effect of, increased NPLs in the sector in relation to IFRS 9, and when is the effect going to be felt? Helping us this morning to understand this topic, we are joined by Rodney Omukulum, is an investment analyst at Saiton Investments, and Gabriel Mwendwa is an investment associate of Horizon Africa Capital. Let me begin with you, Rodney, this morning. Well, before we even answer that question, does it paint, therefore, a clear picture of what the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic has been, especially on the banking sector?
First of all, thank you for having me this morning. And what I can say with regards to how the performance depicts the whole industry generally, I'd say it's somewhat accurate in the sense that you're seeing the effects that all businesses across the board are having. Essentially, where you have big businesses in terms of the services sector suffering, and them not being able to keep up with the loan payments with all the relevant banks. You'll ultimately see a depreciation in terms of the asset quality, where some structured and affect the earnings of these banks.
Fantastic, Rodney. But just before I bring in Gabriel so that we paint a clear picture of what the effect is going to be, you say that if you look at the non-performing loans, therefore, that's where it begins to paint a clear picture of what the effect of the pandemic has been. Is there any other area that your report looked at and said, well, you also have to look at this area as well, just to see what the effect has been?
Well, it's not only the loan book, because ultimately it's a whole working machine. One area affects the whole system. So when you look at NPLs, this ultimately comes to provisioning, where we've seen banks increase their provisioning to a really high level, which has affected their earnings, just in anticipation of the defaults that they expect in the whole banking sector or the loan book. So ultimately, banks have been forced to readjust in terms of their operating model. Also, in terms of regulation, there's been a lot of proactivity in the CBK. So banks have sort of been forced to be on their toes in terms of managing this whole situation around the virus. So you see cost rationalization across the board, the increased provisioning, like I mentioned. And in certain cases, in a move to preserve capital, some banks have withdrawn the initial moves to pay out dividends to their shareholders.
Pretty much. I want to bring in Gabriel. And Gabriel, my question to you is going to be this. But if you look at the commercial banks in the country, I mean, when you look at the gross loans that are being sent out to the economy, you will continue saying that despite what has been said, a bad economic environment that has been worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic, I mean, they have been lending massively. Why don't we see sort of a retracted lending to the economy if indeed, yes, we are not performing okay?
Okay, so I think, and I'd like first to commend, of course, Saiton for the proactive research that they've done. And to just go into your question, there are two things that we need to understand, is that different banks have different exposures to different sectors. So if you look at KCB, about 37% is to personal households, about 4% is to tourism, about I think about 6% is to transport and communication, or rather about 4%. So that first of all tells you whether in this time of the pandemic they'll increase lending to these sectors, or the NPLs will actually increase subject to the performance in these sectors. The other thing that feels, if you've had an insight into some of these banks, is that one, they always have loans that are literally at the border of becoming non-performing. That to resolve the situation before the loan becomes non-performing. And that's policy. I mean, you can give the customer a leeway of 1 month, or over a period of a year, a customer could be struggling, but the loan isn't really non-performing. So what the pandemic did was really push all of those loans that were really at the edge to non-performing. And what the banks did was to actually take advantage of this time to classify performing without actually taking a backlash from CBK or from the investors, because you can put a lot of excuses on the pandemic, while really it was you had a weak balance sheet even before. You had some loans that are not good because the pandemic is here. Why don't you take a hit right now? So that's one on the non-performing loans. Now, on why they're still lending, is because obviously we have opportunities that have come up that are fresh because of the pandemic. We have sectors, and forget the COVID millionaires, billionaires. We have sectors that we have areas that had to receive more capital to thrive. For example, food staff in the first 2 to 3 months, their working capital days, of course, changed a bit. Because, for example, if you are keeping stock for 2 months, now you have to keep about 3 months. So you need a lot more capital. And again, if your customers are paying you within 30 days, now for some reason your customers can only pay you within 45 days. So what that means is that you have to have more working capital, and that's why most of these businesses that have gone back to banks. And this is not only about manufacturing. This is from the manufacturer to the distributor to the retailer. So it cuts across all these segments, whereby now the working capital cycle was affected, and the banks had no choice but to lend a bit more to some of their customers. Now, something else I'd like also to confirm, subject to confirmation, is the accounting policies around this. So one is, think about it. If I have not paid my interest that was due this month, does that interest, is it declared as interest income by the bank, and then they increase their loan book balance by the same amount because they have not received the cash? So the accounting impact is to increase the loan balance. So if it was 100, 110, and then you earn the interest, which balances out the entries. But really, I have not paid the bank. But because they have earned that interest, then there's also the accounting impact that would have driven that growth in the loan book. So it might be partially artificial and partially very real, in that they have to support the businesses that have seen an impact in their working capital cycles.
Yes, Gabriel, my next question to you is going to be, and I just want to bring Rodney, just hold on to that thought as I ask you this question, because I want to get the same sentiment from Rodney as well. I mean, if you look at the non-performing book in the economy, it's not like we didn't have it increasing before. I mean, you have to go up to 2018, 2017 to actually see it start increasing in the economy. Rodney, what would you attribute this to? Yes, it has been made worse by the COVID-19 pandemic, but what would you attribute it to?
Like my colleague mentioned it earlier, these banks still, as at the end of 2019, had a significant amount of loans that were on the border. So ultimately, as a sector or the loan book, it hasn't been the best, evidenced by the NPLs, where the 5-year average is at 8.5. And when you have figures of 11.6 this year, last year around 10.5, it shows you how the quality is currently. So COVID is sort of like into what we're seeing currently in the sector.
Pretty much. Gabriel, now I just want to bring you in on that as well. Yes, everybody's saying, well, it's the COVID-19 pandemic, but just as Rodney is saying, I mean, we've had ratios of up to 10. Now we're talking about about 11.6. The guys were saying it's 13.1%. Yes, the COVID-19 pandemic has made it worse, but we have had it rise all the way from 2018 up to where we are right now.
Yes, and that is very correct. I mean, it's been on the increase, and for various reasons. The banking sector, and especially the loan book, is not a record you can disconnect from the economy. It's one of those things. The stock market, how people are spending, can be different from in the real economy. But the bank's loan book is the one that cannot actually be differentiated, because if people are struggling to generate income, businesses cannot sustain revenues and profitability, then the loan books will suffer, because these are the people you've lent to. And I think the Kenyan banking sector to away from this by going to treasury bills and bonds, but there's only as much as you can do that. You still have to lend a certain portion of your book to the economy. So it's a reflection of this the tough economic times we're facing, all the way back from 2019. I mean, we literally thought 2020 would be better than 2019 till the pandemic came back. So 2019 on its own was a very tough year, and then again, a big company like Tuskys going through what they're going through already affects hundreds of suppliers. Now that's one company that we public light, they can't hide about it. Now assume we have 100 or 200 Tuskys that we don't know about, not necessarily retailers, but big companies or big distributors that are suffering. So then you wouldn't know this until you look at these loan books. So these banks have been dealing with a lot of challenges. They've had to restructure even before the CBK allowed them to restructure. And it's just that impact of being at the border and now the pandemic hitting that even the customers who are the for this. So yeah, you take the loan, or now we can talk default or something like that and blame it on the pandemic or something like that. Yes, the pandemic has its impact, but it's really like the word Ronnie has used. It's just nudged most of these businesses down there.
But imagine now, gentlemen, I just want us to go for a just 1 minute break. But once we come back, all you guys are mentioning non-performing loans. We're mentioning massive restructuring. But the question has been, do we expect a regulatory response from the Central Bank of Kenya geared towards protecting the industry as a result of the increased non-performing loans? Once we come back shortly after this break.